what's up guys, this is Doey. I'm back with my second narrated video guide. This time I'm covering Ragnaros, normal mode in the 10-player version of the encounter. Like all the video guides I'll be doing, I'm going to focus primarily on tank mechanics and things that tanks have to worry about. So if you need a specific on a raid mechanic that I don't really go over in detail or you can't see well on my screen, you can just refer to your in-game dungeon guide or many of the other good websites or videos out there. This is a rather long fight, so I'm going to be skipping around, cutting in and out. There's no need for you guys to watch the entire fight. I don't want to sit people through that, especially since a lot of it's kind of repetitive. I'm just going to go over things you need to see, and you can just get in and out of this video and back to your raid leader. The first thing you want to worry about is Burning Wound. It's a debuff, a stacking debuff that goes on his primary threat target, which are going to be your tanks. It happens throughout the fight. You get a break during phase 2 and phase 4, which are quick transition phases, but you pretty much have to deal with it the entire fight. It's a stacking debuff that does more fire damage to you the more stacks you have. It's obviously something you don't want to stack too high, and like most tank swap debuffs, the amount of stacks you get really depends on the duration of the stack, so you can trade off with your off tank. Here we found 3 to be a good number to start with. Sometimes we've only had 2 when taunting back and forth with AMS and things like that that can shorten the debuff. When you pull, grab about 3 debuffs at the start because there isn't really too much healing to worry about. Have your off tank taunt off at 3, and at that point you just taunt when your debuffs fall off. On the screen you can see here I have my off tank DK on focus. He's on the top right of the screen. I can see his debuff, the stacks on his debuff, and my debuff and the stacks of mine and duration. So you pretty much just taunt whenever yours fall off. Make sure your off tank doesn't get too high, and he'll do the same for you. Another thing you have to worry about is Sulfurous Smash. He's going to smash his weapon down on the ground in front of him. He's going to mark that spot with magma. Just make sure you don't stand in it. Pro tip during phase 1, the magma traps that go down that your range are detonating, it does fire damage to everybody, including the tanks. So make sure that when you guys taunt, you do it before or after he erupts a magma trap. You can coordinate that in vent, but that'll save you a lot of time in the long run. Okay, first transition. He's going to mark a spot on the ground, either the middle, the left side, or the right side, where he's going to throw his hammer down. Obviously, don't stand in that. He's going to spawn 8 small adds with very low hit points. And when they hit 50% health, they get slowed dramatically, but they all move towards the hammer at a very fast speed. So you want to make sure your DPSs them down to about half health to where they get slowed and then move to the other ones. If you have them sit there and herp derp on one until it dies, then one's at full health, they're going to reach the hammer, you guys will wipe and argue and vent. Try to avoid that happening. As a tank, most tanks have stuns. You want to try to spread your stuns out between each ad, so that way they all get slowed and killed properly. Okay, on to phase 2. Phase 2 is titled Sulfurous Will Be Your End by Blizzard. Appropriately titled because there is a point in the fight where Sulfurous will kill raid members over and over until everybody gets it right. I'm going to draw a comparison to Lich King Phase 2, just so you guys have an idea of what's going on. Lich King Phase 2, you guys remember, if it was Defile, everybody spreads out ahead of time, so that way the Defile lands on one person. If it's Valks coming up, everybody stacks up in the middle. But there was one point, it was always the second Valk spawn, where there was a Valk and a Defile right after that, and everyone gets screwed because you have to stack up, but you have to spread out. There's a very similar mechanic here, and you'll see that shortly. As you can see, we just got done stacking for the first time. We're moving out of the front because there's charred ground, which means there's engulfing flames there. It does massive damage, move out of that. And we're DPSing down the elementals, which spawn from the molten seeds. The seeds do less damage the farther away they are, which is why we're spread out away from the blue, and we stack up on the blue when the seeds come out. As you can see, Sulfurous Smash still happens, so make sure you stay out of that and avoid the waves that come out. It's important to note that just like Lich King, there's different abilities that you all need to look out for: Engulfing Flames, Molten Seed, a Sulfurous Smash, but they all coincide at one point, and it's the same point every time, and if you're not prepared for that, then your raid's gonna wipe. Right here it's coming up. You can see the Engulfing Flames being cast. That's a charred ground. You can't really see it on the screen, it's in the very back, so don't worry about that. Next is the Molten Seeds. As you can see, we're a little close to that blue marker, so it kind of sucks. There's a little extra ray damage we'll have to deal with. Tanks pop a cooldown coming in. You can use barrier here, or mastery, what have you. Now right here, on the second time you stack, there's always going to be a sulfurous smash. You can see the yellow magma right there. It's really hard to miss, and the entire raid will always have to move forward on this part. You cannot suck here. Everybody moves forward. Everyone's already at low health, so if you get hit, you're pretty much dead. The ads are still out, the waves are still out. AoE those ads down, and it's back to your original spots. The rest of phase 2 is actually pretty simple. If you got past that part that you just saw, you'll be fine for the rest of phase 2, so I'm going to do a little bit of fast forwarding. Alright, second transition, very similar to the first transition. As you can see, there's 8 red beacons around the room that indicate where the ads are going to spawn. Those are the ones you need to DPS down quickly in order to slow them on time. In the second transition, there's also 2 ads you need to worry about. Your off tank, or preferably the tank that has a less amount of stuns, is going to be the one picking them up. They spawn on opposite sides of the room. As you can see there, they're called lava scions. Since I'm a prot warrior and I have more stuns, we had a DK pick them up. As you can see here, I spread out my stuns. I use a charge on one, an intercept on another one. I run over to the third one and I hit it with a concussion blow right there. I try to get this fourth one with a shockwave, but our pro DK death gripped it before I could. Just the biggest thing is spreading out your stuns and spreading out your DPS. It's more important to get them all to half health to where they can slow each other or slow themselves, rather than it is to burn one and nuke one down. You're going to wipe very quickly if that happens. One other thing to note, those 2 big ads of lava scions, they do place a debuff called blazing heat on random players, and that leaves a fire trail behind that person, so make sure that you don't cover the platform in fire. And the little ads that you have to slow and stun and kill, those get healed if they fall through that fire, so just be really smart with where you're placing that fire. The fire eventually disappears as these lava scions disappear. Alright, third and final phase. In my personal opinion, I think that this phase is a little easier than the second phase and the second transition. But it does require your DPS and your healers to think on their feet when they're kiting the living meteors. So if your DPS and your healers are the weak spot in your raid, you might have a few problems. It's not too bad though, you'll be okay. You still have the tank debuffs to worry about on both your main tank and your off tank, but at the same time the stack up and spread out mechanic of the second phase is gone, so you don't have to worry about your tanks moving in and out while your healers are moving in and out and your tanks dying from that. As you can see, you still have the sulfur smash to worry about. There's a magma on the left side, there's the 3 waves coming out. The waves are a little more of a problem now because you do have to worry about kiting the living meteors while avoiding those waves. You still also have to worry about the burning embers. That's the charred ground that he puts down right there. It's in the front. Make sure you don't move in after the char disappears because there's still that fire damage ticking. You want to wait till all the animations disappear before you move in. The new mechanic you have to worry about in phase 3 is living meteor. A living meteor spawns and it fixates on a random person. That person has to kite the meteor around. Unlike the Sinestro orbs, these meteors do not disappear, but there's a few things you can do. The person who's kiting it, or anybody, can DPS this meteor and it pushes the meteor back relative to where the person was who DPS'd it. What I personally recommend is only the person who kites this meteor actually DPS's it. Things can get really confusing if you're DPSing other people's orbs. Just let whoever's kiting it DPS their own meteor. It makes things a lot cleaner in the long run. Tanks, you're not going to get targeted by the meteors, so you don't have to worry about it, but you do have to worry about meteors coming by you. You can't really ask DPS or heals to not kite near you. You just have to be smart and move out of them when they're coming near. You'll still take that AoE damage, and you don't want extra damage on you. Also, you want to save your cooldowns for when your healers get targeted. Obviously, that's when you'll have the least amount of heals, and you want to stay alive as long as you can. Now, this pattern pretty much continues until about 10%. Normal mode, luckily, the fight ends at 10%, just like Lich King. You start to see a lot of similarities between the two fights. This is only the second video I've made, so if you have any comments, suggestions, things you'd like to see in future videos, please feel free to let me know. Please subscribe to my channel. It'll kind of motivate me to do more of these videos. And that's pretty much it. Best of luck in Firelands, and we will see you in heroic modes.